Hello, this is Jay Mitchell. We are back from another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts from the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. Looks like there's only been 11 posts since the last episode, so this might be a bit of a short episode, but yeah, let's get into it. First, we have proving that hypersensitivity makes people bigoted and error-prone, and that's proposed by Brianna Pup, and that's linked to her YouTube channel, Ideological Subversion. Chatbots, operas are usefully in action in woke spaces, and yeah, I'm not gonna watch the whole video, but I definitely agree with that point that people being hypersensitive and overly political correct makes it hard to interact with them when they try, especially when they rule any and all dissent at all as fascism, even if you are a member of one of their one of the privileged out groups. Like this person who posted this video appears to be transgender, but Reddit would still call them a fascist for daring to call out all the woke stuff. And that's important to remember. You could be as into the as in all the outgroup categories, and as long as you dissent at all, then Reddit would still consider you a Nazi. And that's why it's like the Democratic woke purity test that cost the Democrats the last election, and it looks like they're just doubling down on them. As long as they continue to do them, I think, they're only going to continue to run themselves into the ground, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have McConnell cries fail after 2 Democratic judges cancel retirement after Trump victory from thehill.com by Donald McKee, and yeah, my thoughts on that are, if the Democratic judges don't want to retire now that Trump's going to be president again, I don't think they should be forced to retire. But, yeah, so, if they want to stay in there for as long as they want and be like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think they should be able to. But, just because you want to cling to your position of power forever doesn't make it right. I personally would prefer if they if I personally don't like when people, hold on to power longer than they should and won't let new perspectives come in and new people come in, and that's very much what you see in Washington. McConnell, I think, is guilty of this himself, I would say. He's been in Congress, he's been in the Senate since the 80s, and I think he needs to step down as well, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Supreme Court takes center stage in debate over healthcare for trans minors. Original title, archive page from and that's an archive link from the Washington Post. And yeah, I personally think if people want to, I can see a libertarian argument going both ways. If people want to I think you have an argument that, kids can't consent to it, but you do have the argument as well that, you have the parents' rights argument that the parents should be able to make decisions for their own children. Trans healthcare for minors is something I'm personally against. I would say, I think kids can consent to it, but I could see a parents' rights argument as well, if they want to lobotomize or circumcise their children as well, you could see the libertarian argument for that as well, even if I'm personally even more against those. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have court rules Idaho can enforce ban on interstate abortion travel from HuffPost.com. That's a cross post from the r/law subreddit by CH4Locks. And, yeah, I personally don't think that's very good. I think we shouldn't have interstate crimes, for like crossing state lines. Even if you think abortion is murder, I don't think that's the libertarian position. The libertarian position is, we need to keep we need to respect the right for freedom of travel, and I think that's very much goes against that, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have CAH sucks but did the right thing. Her suspension's been overturned though. Eat it, Mises. My title from thirdpartywatch.com by Doctor Who 07, and yeah, that's the link to let's see. It says the third party watch the article says Phillies win. Judicial Committee sustains my appeals, and yeah. So that's the guy who I guess helped her out one as well. I guess that this is his perspective on it. But yeah, it just goes to say what I said earlier. How Corinne Ann Harlos, she did what the progressive libertarians wanted by putting Chase Oliver on the ballot instead of RFK Jr. And did they agree that she did the right thing? But they'll still say, oh, CAH sucks because she was affiliated with the Mises Caucus for so long and but believes against some of the progressive talking points. And I think that is something that the libertarian people these days, Redditors, progressive Redditors mainly, and progressive Redditors who are trying to co-opt libertarianism need to remember that you just can't, even when someone's actively trying to help your position, like by putting a candidate you like and Chase Oliver on the ballot, and then they rule in favor of her, but you still say, oh, she sucks because she dissents at all. That's very much the problem of the woke Democrat purity test. You're not allowed to dissent at all, or they'll say, oh, you suck, you're a Nazi, etc., etc. Even someone like Corinne Harlos, who has pink hair, normally rainbow hair, or the rainbow unorthodox hair colors are a sign of being in the in group, but if they dare dissent at all, then they're suddenly in the out group. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Augusta University, gender dysphoria and transsexual people has biological basis from Gilmore Health News, and that's from GilmoreHealth.com, original title from Dr. Who 07. And yeah, my thoughts on that are, I think if they want to, you have some studies that show that that it does have biological basis, but others that show it might just be social contagion. I personally think, I think this, a lot of academia isn't going to be inherently progressive bias, and that's important to remember as well. And I think that, and I'm trying to see. So if DC University wants to say that, they should be able to, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to dissent off from it, especially because I would argue that the existence of detransitioners at all proves it to be wrong, and in some instances how they might think, oh, it's biologically based, but what about all the detransitioners who go against that and say, oh, I was transgender at one point, but I no longer am? That just goes to show you how this studies like this are designed to push a narrative that people like those don't exist, and you need to remember that that's increasingly why people don't trust science anymore, I think, because it's just being used to push these progressive narratives. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have nobody could have seen this coming except for all those smug libs who were trying to own from CH Warlocks, and that's a cross post from the Leopards Ate My Face subreddit. And yeah, I think let's see, that's the meme from The Simpsons. A tweet from the Ryan Data, or a Blue Sky post from Ryan Data. They're trying to make that Blue Sky thing. I don't think it's ever going to be a thing. Then we have new Pittsburgh area steelworkers union leaders are upset with President-elect Trump for his vow to block the U.S. Steel Nippon deal. One of them spoke at a Trump rally earlier this year, and he said Tuesday that Trump's statements felt like a gut punch. And that's linked to a Trump Live article, and the quote from the article is, I vote for him. He's the one who's doing this. Minton told Mazzei, I thought he was going to do good things. He's not hurting the people he needs to be hurting. And then it's, they're doing the Say the Line series, like Say the Line Bart from The Simpsons, and then he's not hurting people, and then they all cheer when he says that, and yeah, they'll always call out, oh, he's not hearing people he needs to be hurting. And, I think people like Minton here, the elites, but, Trump is one of the elites, even if he might market himself as much as not one. He was best friends and in bed with the Clintons before he started running against them, and he was on Epstein Island, just like Bill Clinton as well, but no one cares. I think he's just controlled opposition. I'm sympathetic to him and his movement, but he's much more one of them than he is one of us. He's just gonna be he's not gonna stand up against the deep state. He'll just let the same deep state run the country that would run the country during Obama, Biden, or Bush's terms in the White House. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have American Takes Notes from FlimsyL5563, and that's crosswords from the Facepalm subreddit. And that's a tweet from Josh Equal. The South Korean timeline events tonight: 10 p.m. martial law declared, 12 a.m. protesters show up, 12:10 a.m. assembly lifts to lift martial law, 1 a.m. assembly refuses to leave, 4 a.m. president promises to comply, 4:15 a.m. president complies. With swift action, South Koreans save their democracy. Take notes, Americans. And yeah, I definitely do think I'm glad that the South Korean people were able to stand up against their authoritarian president, but I definitely don't think you would see that. I don't know if you'd see that in the U.S. recently, because people are so partisan. I'm sure if the Republican president declared martial law, the Democrats would say, "Oh, this is the worst thing ever." All the Republicans would justify it, and if the Democratic president declared martial law, then all the Republicans say this is the worst thing ever, but the Democrats would justify it, and that just goes to show you how you gotta stand up for what's right over what your team says. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, when asked where the tolerance for MAGA went, from Ragnar OKXG, and that's a post that they made from it looks like a meme from the memes, I guess it says in the lower right corner. So we have, the paradox of tolerance disappears if you look at tolerance not as a moral standard but as a social construct. If someone does not abide by the terms of the contract, then they are not covered by it. In other words, the intolerant are not following the rules of the social contract of mutual tolerance. Since they have broken their terms of the contract, they are no longer covered by the contract, and their intolerance should not be tolerated. Inspired by Tolerance is not a moral precept by Jonathan Zunger. And my thoughts on that are, if you don't want to tolerate those who you deem intolerant, that's fine, but when you rule any dissent at all as intolerance, then suddenly, if someone says something you mildly disagree with, you think, oh, you're a Nazi, Hitler, etc., then suddenly people aren't going to take you seriously anymore. You just can't rule any dissent at all as being a Nazi, and that's increasingly what the progressives are doing. They say, if you have even the most minor dissent from them, they'll say Hitler, Nazi, fascist, etc., and that's why, if I personally don't really care for the paradox of tolerance, because increasingly, they just say, oh, you're intolerant, gotta throw you in the camps and re-educate you, and I don't think that's very libertarian. I think people have a right to be intolerant if they feel like it, because, the definition of what is tolerant and intolerant does vary between individuals, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, I want a version of the sticker that says Authoritarian Bastard by Tom 13, and that's from the r/pics subreddit, and I still love the sticker so much. The sticker of, you're not the Punisher, you're a white supremacist who didn't read the comics. And yeah, I definitely do think, the Punisher, a lot of people who have the Punisher sticker on their car also have the Thin Blue Line flag on their car. I mean, that's very hypocritical. I guess you could argue whether or not the Punisher is libertarian. I do think, you stopping crime and protecting people's property rights is libertarian, especially if they're not backed by the state. But just because, but when the state does something, even if it's a good thing, I would say, I don't think that's very libertarian. And that's why I'd be very against the Thin Blue Line flag. If we had it my way, we wouldn't have police. We'd have, the private militias enforcing the law instead. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, it's wild to see so many libertarians cheering for tax increases, tariffs from Rubber Stump Baby, and that's the self-post that they made. They say, allow Millet to explain. And that's a link to the anarcho-capitalism. Millet explains how important tariffs weaken the economy and your wallet. And I would agree with that. Then we have in David Ricardo, and they link to the Comparative Advantage Wikipedia article. Edit, not so much the sub, but other libertarian subs. Edit 2, I just want to add that Trump is the only politician to ever unilaterally raise my taxes. And yeah, I agree that tariffs aren't good, but it's mostly, I feel like a lot of progressive Redditors are only against them because it's the opposing team doing it, not their team. They were neutral or fine with them when Biden was doing them, and that just goes to show you how, it just really a lot of times it just really depends on who's in the in-group and who's in the out-group. And that's my thoughts on that issue. So, I think we're going to wrap it up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.